going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube and rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. No live show tonight. Just wanted to kind of record a quick little episode talking about that the Bears signed a center and break down Coleman Shelton, but then also talk about what that means for this Bears roster and also some of the free agents that are going off of the board as we speak. Like literally, I'm getting notifications on my phone as we're talking about what is going on. And if you haven't already, join us on our road to 5,000 subscribers out there on YouTube. Make sure to just subscribe so you get subscribed to some of the best Bears content out there. But with that, let's get this show on the road and let's talk about the new center that the Chicago Bears just signed. We don't know the ins and outs of the contract details yet at the time that I'm recording this, but we do know that Coleman Shelton of the Los Angeles Rams signed a 1-year deal with the Chicago Bears. He's typically a center. He's played 1,777 snaps in his short 4-year career for the Rams. Now, keep in mind, too, that this is, to me, at first glance, this is a good fit when it comes down to the scheme. Now, Coleman Shelton, obviously coming from that Rams system, is very, very good underneath a Shane Waldron type of feel. I like this, especially having someone that has the experience in this system. And I think he's a little bit better than an Evan Brown that you could have gotten from the Seahawks. But when you do look at the stats of Coleman Shelton, it's not perfect, ladies and gentlemen. I tweeted this out when this did happen. He allowed the most pressures last year, according to PFF, at 34. He was tied with Brewer from the Titans. 34 pressures. Not great at the center position. 97.1 pass block efficiency rate, which is yet again a very not good number. And also his penalties, he was top 10 in penalties with 6 penalties that he accrued over the season. So those aren't great. But what I will say is 72.6 run block and more of that zone block runner, which is what we need in this system. So yet again, from a system perspective, a good fit. But if you also look the year before, those on YouTube can see this, the year before was a little bit of the flip-flop, according to PFF, 55.6 run block grade, and then a 71.3 pass block grade as opposed to 48.9 the year before. So then his efficiency numbers a little bit better, 98.2, but still 5 penalties. So I don't like the high penalty numbers, especially because the year before that, he only played 720 snaps as opposed to 1,113. But overall, Coleman Shelton, I don't think he's not like a slam dunk center by any means, but he's a solid center, and overall, it's okay, right? How would you grade this out there on YouTube? Is it an A, B, C, D, F? I just like that we at least signed some sort of veteran center that we have out there. Now, I've said this on the show. I always wanted to just draft a pure center, and so that was kind of my take. So I don't mind adding a veteran just to have that out there, but I do feel like the big key piece in this, and Brad Biggs tweeted this out because I believe he was also the one that broke the news. He was saying that it's most likely going to be a position battle between Shelton and Bates. So definitely something to look out for with Ryan Bates being that person that comes over from the Bills, someone that we've already talked about that the Bears are very, very high on, but yet again has experience at center, guard, you name it, he's got experience for it. So with this addition, I think this really means that Coleman Shelton, in my opinion, I think he's going to then be that starter. Ryan Bates is going to be the utility guy. I think they're going to try him out everywhere. They're going to try him out at center. They're going to try him out at guard. And if he wins any of those positions, then awesome. And I think, too, when you look over at the depth chart, this is when you start to ask the question, right? Because you look at this depth chart, and we talked about Matt Pryor last episode. Matt Pryor has been a okay swing tackle, but does have experience at the guard position. Ryan Bates, more of that guard, has a handful of center snaps, so it doesn't mean that they're not going to go after a center in the draft, but they still also have a Doug Kramer, for those that remember him, but also they have Ja'Tyre Carter at guard. But what if they end up saying, you know what, Nate Davis, we can basically, if you cut him pre-June 1st, it's just going to be a wash, basically, when it comes down to the guaranteed money, so you can just move on from that contract. They still have a lot of cap space, so that could ultimately be an option, something to look out for if they don't think that Nate Davis can get back to the level that Nate Davis has, kind of performed at when he was over at the Titans. Because this is the way that I feel. With Chase Claypool, the rumor was that the Bears did not feel good about Chase Claypool over the offseason last year. And if that was the case, and I said this on the show, if that's the case, move on from him. And they didn't. And ultimately, we kind of had to waste him being out there when we could have given reps to someone else or sign a different wide receiver rather than just having to hold on to Chase Claypool. So to me, if the Bears know their decision on Nate Davis, let's see, right? Move on, right? That's my whole piece. Maybe they want to just wait till minicamp comes up and then they could just kind of see, all right, is he in shape? Is he not in shape? What's the story with Nate Davis? But when you look at the depth chart, it's really kind of filling out. You have your tackles, Braxton Jones, Larry Borum, Darnell Wright, and Matt Pryor. Your guards, Nate Davis, Tevin Jenkins, Ja'Tyre Carter, and you could throw Ryan Bates out there. And then your centers, Coleman Shelton, Ryan Bates, if you want to, and Doug Kramer. So I think this offensive line is pretty much set, but we just have to see, my big question, what are they going to do with Nate Davis? Would they actually cut him? Let me know down in the comments, because like I mentioned, they could cut him because of the cap situation that they have right now and just move on from that money. Unless if they wanted to do a post June 1st, I think that they would say $4 million or like $3 million. It's not a lot of money, but it is something they could do. In my personal take, I wouldn't do the post June 1st designation because all that does is it just pushes the cap further down the road. I'd rather just get it done now, and it seems like Ryan Poles is more of that way anyways. So let's also talk about another thing when we look at this depth chart. There's a gigantic glaring hole that we see on this depth chart. You look at the running backs and you go, okay, DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, Travis Homer. Tight ends are filling out because you got Gerald Everett, Cole Kmet, Steven Carlson, and quarterbacks, obviously, with Brett Rippon. You're like, okay. And then you look at the wide receivers and you go, okay, DJ Moore, then Tyler Scott and Velus Jones are your starters, and Colin Johnson and Simba Websters are your backup. We need wide receivers. And right before I went live today, there was brand new news that, unfortunately, Curtis Samuel ends up going over to the Buffalo Bills for 3 years, $8 million average. Honestly, not a bad deal when it comes down to a wide receiver. Now, he does have some escalators in there that could bump it up to $30 million, so then you're making $10 million a year. But overall, this was, I know a lot of us Bears fans, fan favorite that we wanted to see so that he could be paired up with DJ Moore and get the boys back together type of deal. But now you look at the wide receivers, top ones still Mike Williams, but more details are coming out about his injury where he's going to be missing out because I think he had ACL surgery in October, I think they said. So he's going to have a later start to the year, which if with young quarterbacks might not be great, especially with a contested catch guy. You really do need to build that trust. But then Hollywood Brown, Josh Reynolds, Hunter Renfrow, Tyler Boyd. I'll update the list after Curtis Samuel, but just wanted to bring that up because wide receivers, all right, what are we going to do? Is Josh Reynolds going to be out there? Sounds like Tyler Boyd is already talking to teams not named the Bears, so Tyler Boyd might even be off this list pretty darn soon. So we'll have to see. Like, come on, Poles. What are we trying to do? What's going on with this? But then next, let's flip over to the defense because I just want to break down some of the defensive free agents and the recent signings that are out there. So when we look at the defensive depth chart, it's similar to the offense where you feel good about a couple positions. Like the secondary, we feel good with Jonathan Owens and Kevin Byard coming in. So the safeties look good. Our cornerbacks are just masterpiece where we got Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson, Jalen Johnson, Terrell Smith, Jalen Jones, who's honestly as a backup, not terrible. Like as your sixth corner, not bad. And Greg Stroman Jr., I do like him. Whenever he's out there, he's just a solid corner. Love what we have in the secondary. And then Amen being added to the linebacking crew. Feel good about this. But yet again, you look at the defensive line. Defensive tackles, Andrew Billings, Javon Dexter, and Zach Pickens, and Michael Dwummerfor, who we've never heard of before. He was just sitting out there on the practice squad and then picked up. And then at the defensive end, DeMarcus Walker, Montez Sweat as the starters, Dominique Robinson, who was terrible last year, and Khalid Kareem, who, when he came in, he wasn't bad, but he was just, you can upgrade from a player like that for sure. So if we look at the free agents that are available, this is the big news. Now, we said yesterday on the live show we're going to have to talk about DJ Wonnum because we were all like, yep, the Bears are totally going to sign him. He doesn't give the Bears a chance to sign him. He ends up, when he visited the Panthers, ends up staying with the Panthers and ultimately signs with them. Now, the big question with this, too, is I think that the Panthers were in on either Jadeveon Clowney or Chase Young, so it's something to look out for with Jadeveon Clowney. I think it was Jadeveon Clowney that they were talking with. Ultimately, they go with DJ Wonnum at $6.25 million a year over the next 2 years. Not a terribly high deal, but I said it before, DJ Wonnum was not, he was a DeMarcus Walker light, I would say, where he's okay, but he doesn't move the needle, and he's just always kind of fluttering around that neutral war, and he's always been negative actually in that category. So now when you talk about top edges available, I'm still not super nervous about the edge spot at least because you already kind of have your two starters from last year, but you can still add in a Carl Lawson, Derek Barnett, Chase Young, Jadeveon Clowney, Calais Campbell, and there's still a handful of others that are out there. I get more concerned when you talk about the defensive tackles because DJ Reader, who there were some rumors that there was some connections with the Bears, I didn't see anything like official coming from one of the bigger names that the Bears were truly in on it. But then also Quentin Jefferson, who is one of my favorites, ends up signing as well. So now when you look at this, you have Tahir Tart, Sebastian Joseph Day, Poona Ford, Adam Butler, and then the other names that are out there are just kind of random names that you're like, that's a person? that's someone that's in the NFL? So I feel like this could mean a couple things. Because when you look at the defensive tackles on the market and you look at who the Bears ended up passing on, because also Arik Armstead, who wasn't even on my list, he ends up leaving as well. So the Bears do not have a shot at Arik Armstead. He is now gone. So what do they do at defensive tackle? I've talked about this before with Byron Murphy potentially at that 9 spot. But when you don't have a wide receiver right now, you don't have a number 2. It becomes a little bit more difficult to justify drafting a defensive tackle that high when you want whoever is at quarterback to have weapons around them that they feel comfortable with. So I'm hoping that maybe tomorrow we can start reporting some wide receiver news, some defensive end news, something, but slowly but surely we're starting to see this roster come together. And even though things aren't moving fast, it's still an exciting time to be a Bears fan. So if you're watching right now, make sure to like and subscribe so you can join us on our road to 5,000 subscribers. And also, I forgot to mention this one little bit of information just to kind of close things out. The Seahawks traded for Sam Howell. So ultimately, I know the Seahawks was a popular destination to be mocking Justin Fields to. Now, that seems to be off the table. What's going to happen next? You better believe we're going to keep you updated here on the Unbearable Sports Podcast. And Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you know that she's